What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Valley coming at you with a Saturday night / Sunday podcast. We had so many mailbag questions that I figured I would split it up into two themes just because we had some in-season tournament questions I figured I could get to, and then I'm going to run through my exercise of breakout players. I had already started doing this. I did something with it for BR, but we've got 25 breakout players that I have tiered. And so we will go through the exercise. Before we get started, just the usual reminder, please remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the whole nine. Subscribe to all three platforms. Tell people about us if you've done all those things already. Follow us on all the socials. The handles are in the podcast and YouTube description. Join our Discord. The link to that is in the podcast and YouTube descriptions as well. And finally, that's it. Oh, yeah, you can support the show by buying our merch. But the big thing is to subscribe, like our videos, engage, tell people about us. That is the most important thing. Ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple as well. Let's get into this little exercise of mine where I came up with tiers of the types of breakouts, and I limited myself to 3 options per tier of breakout players. A lot of this is predictive, but some of it's predictive, I should say. Most of it's based off what I've already seen, read about, watched film on, done some research on. So I limited myself to 3 players per tier, except for the deep cuts one, because we had a question, and this was, maybe I'll throw this in the actual full mailbag, but it was from HP Burgie, wanted to know about deep cut breakouts, both teams and players. And so I'll probably do a different version of it on that mailbag, but that's one of the tiers here, and I'll throw it up on the screen in a minute. So I think I allowed myself to go 5 deep on that, and then I have other tiers that I created, and they're self-explanatory with the titles, but we have the deep cut leaps, and so I'll have 5 players in there, I think. Then the second year leaps, third year leaps. Oh, you thought their contract was bad leaps, continuation of leaps from last year, stardom bound leaps, so players that are kind of tracking towards their first all-star appearance, and then superstars that I think could be making leaps or will make leaps if they haven't played enough yet. There's a little bit of a spoiler alert in there. I think it's best we'll start from the bottom and go our way up here, and I'll try and blow through this so that it's not just like a super duper long exercise. I don't know if this will resonate a lot for the listeners on the audio version, so maybe you should go check it out on YouTube, but the exercise I thought was instructive. So with deep cut leads here, Matt Ryan in New Orleans, just like shooting the ball really well. He's probably defended better than I've expected, and that unit with him, Jordan Hawkins. By the way, no rookies were allowed in this. So if you wanted to see a Wemby one, a Jordan Hawkins one, Derek Lively, Chet Holmgren, sorry, they're not going to be here. That unit with CJ and a bunch of bench players specifically, and not a bunch of bench players, but you have Herb, and then it's basically 3 floor spacers. It's been Matt Ryan, and it's been Jordan Hawkins, and then Jonas Valanciunas has played a lot with them. That lineup has worked really well. MarJon Beauchamp has started playing more in Milwaukee. He's hitting his threes, covering some really tough defensive assignments. Point of attack defense has still been an issue for them, though, but that's just a player. The fact they didn't have to give him up in the Damian Lillard trade might end up being a big deal when you look at how shallow they are. Also, Peyton Watson in Denver, not like super efficient all the time, but I compared him. Watching him's like watching a human exclamation point. That's what watching him sort of feels like here. And he's taken on some really tough defensive matchups. He has the highest plus minus on the Denver Nuggets when Nikola Jokic is off the floor. The Nuggets have outscored opponents with Peyton Watson on the court by plus 59. I think he actually has a net negative or close to it when he's playing with Jokic or something weird like that, but I've just appreciated the intensity that he's brought. Derrick Jones Jr., he was shouted out in Discord for this question specifically, I think by HP Burgie. Yeah, he's been great for Dallas. I know a lot of people don't want to see him play as much, but right now he's averaging 1.21 points per spot up possession. He's taking on some tough defensive assignments for them. The fact that he is serviceable on offense, though, really, that's great for them because they need two-way players. There's like a shortage of two-way players from them right now. Olivier Sarr in Oklahoma City, once Jalen Williams and big Jalen Williams, Jay Will, and Kenrich Williams are both healthy, are you going to be able to find minutes for Olivier Sarr? Just a big body who's swatting everything, can do things around the basket, grab rebounds. Opponents are shooting like a ridiculously low percentage against him at the rim right now. Just some nice spot minutes. He's been fun to watch. Hayward, Highsmith in Miami, they just really need. I clearly went beyond. Maybe I went 6 players deep in this one. I might have went 7. One of them I wasn't sure if they count as a deep cut, so whatever. But Haywood, Highsmith, he shot the ball pretty well. Has not played a ton for Miami, but they need guys who are hitting threes right now. Probably needs to be willing to take them a little bit more frequently. That's someone to also keep an eye on for the rest of the season. And then the big one here, I wasn't sure if this qualified as a deep cut, but Grant and I go back and forth all the time on this as to whether, because we're so, and our Discord members, we're all in this NBA silo, names that I'll say now, people that are watching on YouTube or might just stumble into this podcast, they're not seeing a ton of them. So Jalen Johnson is absolutely in here. He has killed it. He's shooting like 72% from 2-point range, been running the floor really well. Bites on fakes a little bit too often defensively. Needs to be more careful with some of his passes, but he could be a really dangerous facilitator from a standstill. He's been good on closeouts defensively. He's covering some really big dudes defensively as well. And I think that you really would like to see the perimeter game come along a little bit more. He has some of a floor game, but like an actual standstill jumper, not something we know right now. Been pretty good as a help rim protector. Opponents are shooting. I think I saw it was 9 of 18 at the rim against him. Would love to see, again, the big thing for me would be if those trailer jump shots can kind of fall for him, but he's been absolutely massive for Atlanta. And that's gonna wrap up the first tier here. Let's move on to second year leap, self-explanatory. This is where, again, I limited to 3 players. So these are not the only players who would be candidates, but I tried to limit it to 3 players per these tiers. Shaedon Sharpe, just absolute, been ridiculous. He has been the Blazers' best player, which is when you have, R-Dub, when you have DeAndre Ayton, I guess, Scoot Henderson, he's banged up at the moment. You have Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons only appeared in a game. Like, that's actually saying something. He's been making shots from the perimeter. He's hitting pull-up threes at a very high clip, shooting very well from above the break. And it's really all just the beginning for him. I think we still need to see his passing is better. It's still pretty basic, but he's thrown a couple nifty dimes in the pocket and his post entries. If he ever starts deferring more consistently on his drives, it's going to be scary hours on this dude. I've been really impressed with what I saw from him. Another second-year player that's really impressed me, Mark Williams, is just this massive dude, but he has like dexterity and speed, really good IQ. I think there's more to plumb for him as a passer. I'd like to see him test out that jumper that we saw towards the end of last season. Not threes necessarily, but more of the true mid-range looks rather than the ones from kind of the short floater range. But he's wrecking lives around the rim right now, and he can swallow passes whole. Like, this is someone who's going to break up a bunch of stuff on the ball, away from the ball, not as just a shot blocker and deterrent, but is just really getting in there with his hands. He's been doing a better job this year of avoiding foul trouble on defense, and he can make some really tough catches on the move as well, and can give you some nice touch around the hoop. I think the Hornets got a good one here. You might prefer this next guy, though. That is Jalen Duren. Been an absolute monster who the Hornets could have had, by the way, but they decided not to. I think Mark Williams is good enough to where you don't have to concern yourself with it too much, but Jalen Duren has been an absolute monster. I can't say absolute enough to get there. I think the thing that's actually impressed me the most with him, and you look at what he's doing, the connection with Cade Cunningham is both, it's empirical and ethereal at the same time. He has this gait of Giannis, but a ballerina's fleet of foot. But I'm still most impressed by his passing. He can actually make reads on the move. And I think that having that IQ already as a second-year player is huge. And once you get him actual, not net negative floor spacing, let's say, like you have in Detroit right now, winds up being huge for the Pistons long-term. I also think he's been good just as a vertical spacer right now. And again, that's without actual spacing around him. Imagine what he'll do when that changes. And just the stat lines are gaga right now. It's just like, 15, 13, 3 assists, 2 swats per game, and he's shooting 65+% on his twos. There are 2 definitive building blocks in Detroit. I'd be prepared to throw Sarr Thompson in there, but it's Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren right now has entered that territory. Moving on to third year leaps, and we'll start with this one with Scottie Barnes, because I think there's the Stardom bound leap, which I think he might have a case for this year, but I need to see higher offensive returns from Toronto before I'm ready to slot him there. But they have supercharged his usage. And while it has not culminated in a pretty offense, they're learning a lot about Scottie Barnes and his armory. It's real. Like, this is someone who's around 20-5, shooting, I think, 55% on his twos. He shot well on his standstill threes last year, which is a huge development for them. He knows now when you kind of look, he's using his body better to create separation, whether he has his back to the basket or he's going downhill. I still think he needs to do a better job of kind of embracing contact and maybe junking some of those fadeaways, trying to get to the rim a little bit more would be good for him. But just like, he's hitting enough of his runners and his turnarounds right now to where it just really doesn't matter. The turnovers can get ugly here, and they're inordinate in number sometimes. That's part of the offensive hub learning curve. And I still think, look, he's made better decisions, I think, or he's getting better at surveying the floor and passing out of double teams. Give him actual spacing. And I think that this is someone who you can now build around. It's not just, oh, he can be part of this rebuild, or is he like the second guy, the third guy? Maybe his best role will be second best player in a title team, but this is someone who can direct your rebuild, is worth at least directing your rebuild around. Alperen Sengun is here as part of the third year leaps. The Rockets are finally giving him more volume right now. His touches per 36 minutes are way up. I think he was about 48 touches per 36 minutes in the front court last year. That shot up to over 53. While his overall usage is only up a tick, that really just says more about his commitment to a passer. But he still managed to ratchet up his scoring, and he's doing well on the glass. I've noticed, we've all noticed that this better role for Sengun, it's not resulted in winning at a higher clip for Houston, but he keeps the ball moving. He is just more aggressive as a finisher right now. He's hitting his threes. There are outlines of a system that you can build around him as Jalen Green is struggling, as Fred VanVleet's kind of been up and down, as you're dealing with life sans Tyrese, who's been banged up. Jabari Smith Jr. has not looked too great on the offensive end this season. If you can get to a point where the Rockets are moving faster, more frequently, more consistently, more decisively once around Sengun, once he catches the ball, I think that is your best basis for an offensive system right now. And you can see the skeleton of it at points. It's just not consistent enough. To wrap up this tier, I have to go with Cam Thomas. I mean, how do we go with anyone but Cam Thomas? He's averaging over a point per drive, one of 5 players doing so right now, who's a minimum of 15 drives. For anyone else who's interested in the other 4 in that department, Jason Tatum, Chet Holmgren, he's been absolutely great. I said Jason Tatum, Embiid, and Kelly Oubre. So 2 guys that come from the Sixers. But Cam Thomas, we've so often referred to him as a microwave scorer. I think people still default to that. It's basically an insult at this point. Do I think he'll flirt with averaging 30 points per game for the entire season? Absolutely not. Does he need to do more as a passer? Absolutely yes. But there's a rhyme and reason to the way that he is playing, an actual process that transcends these chucker labels. He's showcasing poise, patience in the lane, reading defenses in ways that he just wasn't beforehand. He's exploring, I think when you look at a lot of his shot making now, it's uncomfortably mid-range heavy, but he's also exploring different levels of that middle. He's varying the depth to which he's traveling, the speeds at which he's traveling off the catch and out of ball screens. That's going to, I think that sustains. And we're kind of seeing defenses respond in kind here, where they're overreacting. We've seen him throw a couple of parades to the free throw line so far this season. And I think he's been more opportunistic at the rim. He could still stand to get there more often. The fact that he's doing all this without nailing threes at an especially high clip. And also the bigger thing is when you watch him, and Lucas Kaplan from Nets Daily had pointed this out, he's playing very much within the flow of the larger offense right now. That's a weapon that translates to a better version of the Brooklyn Nets team. This tier was kind of hard. I don't know if we get to a point where you sign guys to extensions and then it's just, oh, they're all of a sudden not as valuable. It's the Tyler Herro effect. We saw it with, oh shit, I'm spoiling stuff here. Tyler Herro is in this tier for me. He has been scorching hot to start the season. It has not helped Miami's offense. He's definitely overstretched as a playmaker, but I think he's improved incrementally each year. as that passing type. Only Donovan Mitchell, Steph Curry, and Luka Doncic have hit more off the dribble three-pointers than him right now. He's hitting those threes at a 38.2% clip. That's absolute fire. He's going to give up so much defensively for you, but he is an offensive lifeline right now. When you look at how poorly Jimmy Butler's been playing, how all over the place the Heat have been, where they're almost too reliant in the half court with certain units. He's giving you a breath of fresh air where he'll operate a little bit more quickly. He can still do some of the stuff off the ball. Him and Duncan Robinson and even Bam at points, like they fueled some of the higher moments for Miami's offense. And so you look at his contract and it's, 4 years, guaranteed 120 million. I think that's ultimately fine. You don't want him to be your point guard. That's never been what he's supposed to be, that primary playmaker, though. That's why you're supposed to have Butler being able to get downhill, which he just hasn't been able to do this season. RJ Barrett, 4 years, its first year of a 4-year, $107 million extension. Missed some time now. He's banged up with right knee soreness, I believe it is. That is concerning, but you watch him hitting his threes. That's a big deal. Still not the most efficient player, but he's getting better at getting defenders on his hip, not picking up his dribble, making reads from there. The defensive effort has been better from him this season as well. He's thrown some just passes where you look at them and look back and say, oh, okay, he gets it. And we can't put him in the entry to stardom tier. At least I can't just now. Maybe Knicks fans would be more inclined to throw him there. And so you're not going to change the entire build of your team to fit him. But I still just wonder if he was around better spacing or players who were more willing to throw up threes in volume. And look, they get to lineups. They pull RJ, they stagger him with some of the bench units, but those aren't super spacey. Like I would like to see RJ plus 4 shooters, which is just something the Knicks will never truly get to, given the makeup of the roster and how Tibbs likes to run the types of fives he likes to run or how he uses his fives. When you're looking at Isaiah Hartenstein, who can space the floor, but that's not what they're going to use him for specifically. But he's thrown enough of those passes this season, RJ has, to where I think he gets it, and I would like to see that more. And so I wouldn't rule him out of the entry into stardom. The final one for this tier is Michael Porter Jr. He has like 4 years, 140 plus left on his deal. He signed about a 5-year, $180 million contract. I don't know who is necessarily calling his deal bad after the Nuggets won the title, but I really just want to underscore how big of a leap he's actually taken as a defender, as a rebounder, being consistently aggressive, disciplined in both areas. I already mentioned at the top of this podcast, if you listened to the bit about the in-season tournament, he was defending Luka Doncic for good stretches, and like he gave him hell. And we've seen it, we saw it dating back to the playoffs. Like he gave Kevin Durant fits, and he's defended some even smaller players for certain stretches. I think when you look at his help side rim protection, it's gotten a lot better. The raw numbers when people are going and challenging him up against the rim, but just like when he's coming over, reading when and how to provide help. So forget even just about the basket specifically. That's a really big deal. And he can just have these nights where he'll be thermonuclear AF on offense. And yeah, you want to see those, and they come basically entirely within the flow now. We mentioned that with Cam Thomas, but like MPJ has been there for a little while. He's not hijacking possessions to find his own looks. Like he can give you, what did he score? It was 24 points on 10 of 18 in that first in-season tournament game, 4 of 8 from 3. Still one of the best shooters alive, and he can go through his cold spurts. To me, what's most impressive is that when he's gone through some of those valleys this season, it just is not, by and large, impacted his defensive effort. And so do I think he's some top-tier defender? I don't really know. But I feel like that's overstating where he's at right now. But like this is someone who's a league average defender or better at the moment. And now the Nuggets are just big. Like now they're big and have how many plus defenders on the court? Whereas Jamal Murray for his position, is he kind of there? You have Aaron Gordon, you have MPJ. Jokic is fine for the most part. It's only in certain, actions that you can throw him in. And then the Timberwolves, of course, they seem to know how to defend him better than most, where let's put Karl-Anthony Towns on him and we'll have Rudy Gobert on the back line. The Nuggets are just so big. And you want to throw Peyton Watson. They get some really just big lineups where everyone, even Nikola Jokic on defense, like disrupts plays with his hands, in addition to getting his rebound. So MPJ, huge development for the Nuggets. That'll be the catchphrase. There's just huge development when you're talking about these leaps. Next tier is a continuation of leaps from last year to where it was, oh, did these things happen midseason or were they disrupted by injury? And they're still going to me. J-Dub in OKC fouled out in the in-season tourney game that Shea wasn't there. Don't pay attention to his efficiency as much. And there have been some turnover issues, and he could still become like dead set on getting to the rim too much. I'd like to see him just sort of spruce up his outside volume. The Thunder are having him just run entire units at the moment. It's like they're pulling Giddey and Shea so that we're going to see J-Dub be the one to run some of those bench heavier units. And they haven't always looked pretty, but it's worked a lot of the time. And his ability to get to the basket, the disruption that he's able to provide on defense. And this is just like, aside from Lou Dort, like that is the guy. I know what Chet Holmgren can do as his own sort of disruptor down low. And the shot blocking he gives you not just inside, but on the perimeter. But it's like after Lou Dort, and I would even say there's a chance that J-Dub, because of the way he can defend up, I would argue better than Lou Dort. This is just the guy on defense for them. And if he's not there yet, like he's just going to be the guy at some point. And so I really think that while some of the efficiency numbers, we've seen a little bit of a pullback there, it's the information you're getting on him in the context that he's being used, like that's more important. And that he still gets to the rim a ton. It's probably a little bit less, but he's experimenting more from the mid-range. And noticeably more of his attempts are going unassisted this year. Increasing that burden could, in theory, complicate his development. You're getting more information, but is he worse off? He has not been worse off. And I don't really know where to set his ceiling as a player. We know where Mike Grant, if for people who are familiar around these parts, we know where Grant lands on this. But as he gets more comfortable facilitating out of those downhill assaults, maybe pulling up a little bit more often, a little bit more efficiently, the Thunder are just going to become even more immediate. The Thunder are able to hang with the Warriors, even though they don't have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That's a testament to what Jalen Williams can do in a game where he's not like even at his best. Devin Vassell is coming up here next. Again, someone else where you've seen the efficiency decline a little bit. He's not tasked with facilitating as much either because they've gone to point Jeremy Sohan. And that's fine. He's experimenting with some really tough jump shots, and some of them are going in. I've seen him hit just a few of these bonkers level threes. His pull up 2 is falling as ever. And I wouldn't say he's putting more conventional pressure on the basket, but like he's not picking up his dribble as early or shying away from contact as much. And so that's like an additional form of rim pressure for him. It's finer print evolution that has fueled some really tough finishes around the basket and, more importantly, additional trips to the charity stripe. So this is someone who is leveling up his offense, leveling up, expanding his scoring portfolio. It's okay that he's not running as many or he's not running pick and rolls and droves or facilitating a ton out of the half court. That's why you have Trey Jones. That's why you have Jeremy Sohan at this point, and you have other guards that are going to have the ball in their hands through those stages. I think Devin Vassell, again, it's been, as I said, more of a finer print evolution, but it's building off of last year to where had he played more games, he would have been at the 4 of the most improved player discussion with Lauri Markkanen and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I don't know if he has a chance to get there this season. No, I don't know why I wouldn't say that. Finally, to wrap up this tier, I think you knew it was coming. This could be, it could be a deep cut leap, but Naz Reid, he's outplayed Karl-Anthony Towns, and he's been the best offensive big for the Minnesota Timberwolves. The floor game, still there. It's not an ultra prominent part of what the Wolves do, but it's more than break in case of emergency. Shooting over 65% on his drives. Dane Moore from the Dane Moore NBA podcast with Kyle Teige. You should follow those guys. That podcast is fantastic. Had this stat that Reid is yet to not score on a post up in some form, where it's even if he missed the shot, ends up going to the foul line. I've been really impressed with his defensive progression as well. The Wolves have one of the 3 best defenses in the leagues by points allowed per possession right now. He's been a big part of it. He's super switchable. His rim protection started improving last year. That improvement has held, and he's also been able to cover up for minutes in which he has played with Karl-Anthony Towns, which is just absolutely, let's call it, a huge development for the Timberwolves. He's hitting his above the break 3 still. I don't know what this is someone who I think is playing enough minutes right now to win Sixth Man of the Year and Most Improved Player at the same time. And it's if they ever come, they might need to have some awkward discussions if Towns doesn't start playing better soon. I'm not saying you bench Towns. It's more of, well, do we move Towns before his salary skyrockets to almost 50 million when he's at like 36 and change? That's a real discussion that Naz Reid is kind of forcing because he's so thoroughly outplaying Towns right now. Too early to have it. I'm just saying, put on alert because Naz Reid has been. Rudy Gobert has been really good too, defensively especially. But Naz Reid has been. Has he been Minnesota's best two-way player? Jaden McDaniels hasn't played enough yet. I think you can make the case that maybe Anthony Edwards is still right there, but there's a chance Naz Reid has been Minnesota's best two-way player to start the season. That's wild. We're into the Stardom down leap. So the guys that are either make their first-time All-Star, a first-time All-Star appearance. I'm not saying that's all they could do. Some of these guys could make All-NBA. I'm going to start with Desmond Bane because the Grizzlies suck, but it's through no fault of Desmond Bane. He is overtaxed right now, but the fact that his efficiency isn't lower, that his true shooting percentage is still above league average. Yes, I know the Grizzlies, their offense is in like the 12th percentile when he's playing as sort of their, they have the league's worst offense overall, I believe, and they're in the 12th percentile when he's on the court. They're asking him to do so much, to put more pressure via drives, to run pick and rolls. It's not that they just don't, it's not only they don't have John Morant, they don't have Steven Adams. And so you're losing your best screen setter. You don't also have Brandon Clark. And so you're playing with Xavier Tillman and David Roddy. Zaire Williams has played a ton of minutes. The burden on Bane is exponential right now. It's incomprehensible relative to where he was just a couple years ago. Just sort of this lower usage, lower minute rookie. And now fast forward into year 4, he's on this $200 million extension that doesn't kick in until next year, and he's worth it. He's giving you around 25 points and 4 assists per game. And the fact that his shooting splits have not taken a nosedive, that's big. I mean, he's shooting below 35% from 3 or right around there, but it's coming on bonkers volume and on greater degrees of difficulty. More of his made buckets are going unassisted. And just look at how defenses key in on him now. The coverages are way more aggressive, not just when he's looking to attack, but it's sort of just the first line initiator that these defenses are really going after him. He's still shooting really well from 2-point range, by the way. He was at last I checked like 59%. I didn't check after that Blazers game, though. That's ridiculous. That's just absolutely ridiculous. His playmaking still isn't floor general material. I think he's done a better job. You're looking at the awareness, his spatial awareness, finding trailers in transition, getting better at the live dribble kicks to the corner specifically. I don't know, he's not the level of star to where with Memphis's current resources, he's going to salvage their season, but this is absolutely a star turn. It is just absolutely a star turn. And he belongs in the early season all-star discussion. Speaking of the early season all-star discussion, Tyrese Maxey. I would like to think that the 76ers decided to expedite James Harden trade talks because he's been so good. Not because the owners got involved, but because that Tyrese Maxey's just been cooking. Averaging over 30 points per game, shooting the lights out from 3, not getting to the basket as much, and he's been hardly lights out when you're looking at his off-the-dribble shooting. He's making the biggest development is he's making headway as a playmaker here, a deliberate playmaker. His comfort changing directions on ball, all-time high. Ditto for his chemistry with Joel Embiid. He's learning to downshift, coming around screens as well, to where it's almost everything needed to be super fast. The dial's always going to 11. It doesn't need to be like that now. He's not, he's not manipulating the game at a Luka Doncic level speed, but the fact that he can downshift, which is something that Jalen Green in Houston has never really learned to do, that's huge. He's also leaving his feet as sort of a decoy. I know not all jump passes have purpose, but he's leaving his feet and even using his eyes, looking in different directions to try and trick defenses so that he can throw the right pass. Philly's offense, when he's playing without Joel Embiid right now, is bad. It was right around league average, and then you have like a one game, and it gives you like this massive downturn. He's done enough, though, to where you look at it and say, okay, this could be the point guard of the future. And you want someone else who can make shots off the dribble, a perimeter player. I know a lot of people say a guard like Zach LaVine. If that's relative to availability, I get it. But it really should come more in the form of a wing. But this is someone who, he's he has an all NBA ceiling. I think we're there. Maybe not this season. I think you still need to see some more expansion, a little bit more of the off the dribble efficiency. Can he get to the foul line even more? Can his playmaking continue to improve? If we're fast forwarding ahead to next year, would not shock me if he's in the All NBA discussion. To wrap up the star bound here, I'm going with Cade Cunningham, and I think there will be maybe even listeners of this podcast. They will focus on the efficiency. He's still below average when you're looking at the true shooting percentage. He's been, quite frankly, awful at the rim, even by his standards. He's committing turnovers in spades, so many of which, going back and watching, there's indecision there or just outright bad decisions that come after picking up his dribble. I really just don't care. The signs that we're seeing, and it's just, I mean, he's pumping in the points, shooting over 40% from three, which looks sustainable. He's not hitting his pull-up threes, which is where he's always been comfortable taking kind of those step backs or those pull-ups. He's shooting the lights out on catch and shoot threes right now, and he's taking them quickly enough. It just looks like he's at home doing it. I'm buying his 3-point stroke off the catch. I don't know if he'll sit Galaxy's above 40% the entire season, but if you told me he shot 39-40% from three for the year, yeah, he's not tempted. He's unseduced by the temptation to dribble out of wide open threes now. And that was just not something we could say beforehand. That's what's the catchphrase for this podcast? Huge development at the moment. And I also think when you look at what he's doing as a passer, there's a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander-esque manipulation to his game. Defenses can sometimes speed him up, coax him into gaffes. For the most part, he's unflappable so long as he's keeping his dribble. Changing cadence and direction, head on a swivel. His eyes, they're seeing into the next pass, or they're just guiding opponents away from his ultimate intent where he's going to throw these no-look passes. This is, again, someone who is operating with suboptimal spacing. And you should check out the full mailbag episode, which will go live on Monday, where we get into a little more of the Killian Hayes, Jaden Ivey awkwardness going on in Detroit right now. Cade Cunningham is making the star turn if he stays healthy, though. So this is basically his sophomore season. But I've seen enough from him on offense. I think the finishing's eventually going to come. He's missed a lot of just like, oh, yeah, he needs to improve his takeoff points, angles. That's been a thing. I've talked to Laz Jackson, I think, about that in the past, but I don't think so much this year, but it was during the 2022, 2023 look ahead. So you go back and look at that podcast from over a year ago and see how much of it is still germane. I think he will get better at the rim as the spacing improves. And also there's just been like actual high quality misses where the shots he's blowing these wide open layups or they're rolling off the rim. I think his touch will improve maybe to where he can shoot like 60 something percent around the basket, which is high enough, better than in the 50s. And look, the connectivity he has with Jalen Duren, being able to find him, knowing where to place those passes, creating vertical spacing that way. This is someone, I know a lot of people are out on him as sort of having the superstar ceiling, and they're going to put Mobley and Barnes in front of him as who's going to have the better pro career. It's still, I would bet on probably Mobley still at this point. The jury is still very much out. Cade Cunningham is firmly in that discussion. And you notice Evan Mobley's not here. I thought about putting him in, but again, I limited myself to 3 players a tier. The offensive evolution is happening, even if it doesn't always unfold beautifully or at a high efficiency. It's happening with Evan Mobley. I don't know that he's ever going to have the opportunity that Cade and Scottie Barnes are getting right now with the current iteration of the Cavs, where you have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, and also making plays from the middle of the floor on offense in the half court. It's going to be a lot tougher when Jarrett Allen is back. But I think it bodes well for when, okay, Jarrett Allen is back, you're running your full squad. Now these Evan Mobley is the lone big units that are going up against benches. Those things might cook and just absolutely destroy opponents. Our final tier, superstars making leaps. And so this is more predictive for the most part. Well, it's not predictive, but it's just, who are these high-level top 10-ish, top 15 players already who have added to their game? I'm going to start with Luka. He's not doing anything too differently aside from, he's trying on defense and complaining less, folks. Luka Doncic complaining less. That counts as evolution. And then he's just been hyper efficient on all his usual bag of tricks. That counts. Look, that counts as making a leap for me. Jason Tatum, he leads the league in points per drive right now. He's officially maybe the most complete scorer in the NBA. You're gonna have to ask me who is more complete than him, as someone who's gonna be able to work off the ball as a spot up shooter, get moving off the ball in transition to run the floor, but also be able to hit those sidestep threes, create his own twos, pull up from mid range, follow all the way through on his drives, throw some just he wants to work with his back to the basket, or he's going to use like a pivot foot and try and get defenders to come off his feet when he gets closer to the basket. I think I already mention he's drawing fouls at I don't think it's at as high a clip as he was last season, but it's still a reasonable enough clip. This is an every level scorer. And I think he's probably I'm hesitant to say the most complete offensive player in the league. The passing still needs to come along to a degree, especially he can still be a little bit predictable on his drives, but he's more unpredictable overall because he's scoring at every level. And I don't know who would be the more complete scorer right now. Luka. Luka might be the most complete scorer in the NBA. He's in that discussion. Shea would be if his 3-point volume, which he's taken more than he was last season, but it needs to come up even further. Jason Tatum is in that discussion. He's probably been in it for a while, but he might be the most complete offensive player, period. I mean, just even more than Luka, because he's able to play off the ball. Like this is just I hope we appreciate. I didn't have him. I think I had him finishing. He was in the top 5 of my MVP voting. He's probably the MVP of the league right now. It's him, or it's Luka, or it's Steph, or it could be my next player just based off how bad they've done since he hasn't really played. Devin Booker. I'm putting him in. He's only played 2 games, and the Suns have issues, and I'm putting him in the wrong tier first so I can move him up there. The passing, just look at it. The way that he's able to dictate the pace of the Suns too, and they need the rim pressure that he provides on the ball, off the ball. Bradley Beal will help when he returns from that too. He has improved so much as a defender. It's not even funny at this point. I'm not even joking here. This is just like Devin Booker is a two-way player, and I don't really like framing things as two-way because it's like people when they say two-way superstars, we've seen him have his struggles, and they're still insulating him to some degree. But like he's defended a lot. He's defended some at the point of attack. We saw him pick up against Jeremy Sohan. We've seen him go, but also kind of defend like the bigger guys, like a Jonathan Kuminga, Andrew Wiggins, even in that game. He spent some time on Steph Curry when he played the Warriors. I think he's dealing with that ankle soreness. That's something to monitor. But when you look at what he's going to be able to do as a passer, I'm hoping we get to see a stretch of games. I don't care if Bradley Beal's healthy or not. He doesn't need Bradley Beal or Kevin Durant to drive the Suns towards a good offense, maybe outside of crunch time. He doesn't need that second star. It would not shock me. I predicted he would set a career high in assists, so about 7 assists per game. I thought that was bold. It might not have been bold enough. Again, if he just puts together, once he gets healthy, this is someone who can average 8 or 9 assists. I'm that high on his pass, his evolution as a passer. And then also thinking like he's going to give them Suns defense overall, by the way, rim protection can be shaky. It's been a little bit better than I've expected for the most part, looking at their personnel, especially when you're not getting to, took them all out of dust off Cade Bates Diop. They're not playing Nas Little as much. They are playing Josh Okogie a bunch. So there's that for sure. But like they've really gone to, okay, we're going to have Nurkic on the floor. We're going to have Eric Gordon on the floor. Not necessarily what you would think are their best defensive lineups, but they figured out a way. Yuta Watanabe's been good for them. They're still trying to figure things out. I'm delving too much into what I'm going to cover in Monday's mailbag. So I think Devin Booker ends up we look back on this and he will finish incredibly high in let's see if I could zoom in on this for anyone who wants to get some of the tiers more on screen. So yes, wrap it up to recap. Superstars making leaps: Luka, Tatum, Booker. Stardom bound leaps, the first time all-star caliber guys: Desmond, Bane, Maxey, Cade, Cunningham. The continuation of leaps from last season: J-Dub, Devin, Vassell, Nas, Reid. Oh, you thought their contracts were bad? They are not. Or at least I don't think. RJ Barrett, Tyler Herro, Michael Porter Jr. Third-year leaps to keep an eye on: Scottie Barnes. He might have a case for the Stardom bound one. I'm not going to lie. Alperen, Sengun, Cam Thomas. The second-year leaps: Shaedon, Sharpe, Jalen, Duren, Mark Williams, and then just some deep cut leaps. And there are others, but Matt Ryan, MarJon Beauchamp, Peyton Watson, Derrick Jones Jr. I don't know if he's making a leap, but the fact that he's serviceable. Haywood, Highsmith, Olivier, Sarr, and Jalen Johnson's like the biggest name, I would think, in here. I would argue if we're looking at the most meaningful ones are going to be Jalen Johnson and MarJon Beauchamp. I'm not going to lie. Maybe you could throw Matt Ryan or Peyton Watson in there. MarJon Beauchamp and Jalen Johnson are getting more minutes. So they're probably going to have a higher impact on their team. I hope you enjoyed this bonus weekend podcast, which I don't know if I'll be getting in the habit of, but I really want to try and get you all 3 episodes a week. There will be more guests coming on, maybe doing some team check-ins during the middle of the year, but it's tough to find people. I don't want to bother them too much because there are a lot of capable people who cover the entire NBA, but there aren't a lot of people who cover the entire NBA. It's a lot of localized stuff, and I don't want to be bothering the same people to come on and talk about the entire league. And so Grant and I will try and get 2 a week out of us. You always have that mega long episode that we do where we either bounce around or maybe there's a theme to it. We're going to try and start doing like one evergreen episode a week. We're going to do I think next week or 2 weeks from now, we have our building our all NBA underpaid team. So we'll get to that. You can look forward to stuff like that. But mailbags, solo mailbags or stuff like this, insofar as you guys enjoy them. I'll be honest, I don't enjoy recording these episodes because I don't want to talk to myself for 50 plus minutes. But I think mailbags, at least I feel like I'm having a conversation, or if they're, this one, if you enjoyed it, I can look at doing more like this, more kind of solo ones. But overall, I don't like doing this. But the mailbag ones, like the questions we had on the in-season tournament, it feels like I'm at least having a conversation with you guys. So let me know if the solo episodes are okay. If you actually enjoy them, not that you sit through them and tolerate them, but if you enjoy them, that'll be a way to ensure we get you 3 episodes a week. There could be weeks where it's 2, but we're here. We're pumping out content. Subscribe if you have not already. Tell people about us. And if you convince subscribers to come and join us, let us know or bring them into Discord. We're reaching I think we're close to 200 Discord members, which is really low for the amount of people that listen to that podcast. People have I don't want to say stumbled. They've ambled into Discord and they've been surprised at how much fun they're having in there. And I like that I don't have to be as responsive because I'm doing a million things. This is not woe is me, but I am our video editor, our producer on this, all the short stuff that's going up, that's helping drive the subscriber base. I'm editing those. So my time is just so limited. I'm trying to do so many different things. If you guys get in there and you talk amongst yourselves, I'm watching, maybe not always responding. I'll throw my reactions in there. But it's really great to see. So go join Discord.